What happens when one of Hollywood's most unpredictable actors sits across from daytime television's most controversial host, and a simple interview about his latest film turns into the most explosive confrontation ever caught on live television? You're about to witness Nicolas Cage like you've never seen him before, and trust me, you won't believe what comes out of his mouth. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below because this is going to be absolutely wild. The View's studio buzzed with anticipation as Nicolas Cage settled into the guest chair, his signature intensity already palpable even in casual conversation with the other hosts. He was there to promote his latest thriller, but Joy Behar had other plans entirely. "So, Nicolas," Joy began with that familiar smirk, "I have to ask about your financial troubles from a few years back. I mean, buying all those castles and dinosaur skulls, that was pretty irresponsible, wasn't it?" The temperature in the studio seemed to drop several degrees. Cage's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but his voice remained measured. "Well, Joy, I think that's a rather reductive way to look at someone's life choices. I made investments, some worked out, some didn't. That's called being human." "Investments?" Joy laughed, turning to the audience. "Is that what we're calling buying a pyramid tomb now? Come on, Nicolas. You have to admit, some of those purchases were just crazy." Whoopi Goldberg shifted uncomfortably in her seat, clearly sensing the tension building. "Joy, maybe we should focus on the movie," she suggested diplomatically. But Joy was just getting started. No, I think people want to know about this stuff. I mean, Nicolas, you've made some really questionable movies too. Like that one where you're fighting animatronics at a pizza place. What was that about?" Cage leaned forward slightly, his famous eyes beginning to show that familiar fire. "You know, Joy, I find it interesting that someone who's made a career out of sitting at a table and offering opinions would critique someone who actually creates art." The audience went silent. Even the cameramen seemed to hold their breath. Joy's smile faltered for just a moment before returning with renewed venom. "Art? Is that what you call screaming about bees? Or dressing up like a bunny rabbit? Come on, Nicolas. At some point you have to own up to the fact that you've made some real stinkers." "I own up to everything I've done," Cage replied, his voice getting slightly louder. "Every role, every choice, every moment of my career has been deliberate. I don't hide behind a desk making cheap shots at people who are actually out there taking risks." Sarah Haynes tried to jump in. "Nicolas, tell us about your new film, the one where you play." "Oh, let me guess," Joy interrupted. "Another Nicolas Cage movie where Nicolas Cage plays Nicolas Cage? Do you ever actually act, or do you just show up and be weird?" That was it. Something shifted in Cage's posture, like a coiled spring suddenly released. His voice dropped to an ominous whisper that somehow carried more menace than any shout. "You want to know about acting, Joy? Let me tell you something about acting. Acting is about truth. It's about finding the raw, honest emotion in a moment and sharing that with the world, even when it makes you vulnerable. It's about commitment to a craft that most people could never understand." Joy rolled her eyes dramatically. "Oh, please. Spare me the lecture. You're not Marlon Brando, Nicolas. You're the guy who screams about stealing the Declaration of Independence. And you're the person who thinks making jokes about other people's lives passes for entertainment," Cage shot back, his voice rising. "At least when I commit to something, I commit fully. When I take a role, I don't phone it in. I don't sit in judgment of others while contributing nothing meaningful to the world." The other hosts were frantically trying to regain control of the situation, but it was like trying to stop a freight train with their bare hands. "Contributing nothing?" Joy's voice pitched higher, clearly stung by the accusation. "I've been in this business longer than you've been alive, sweetheart. I've interviewed presidents, covered wars, dealt with real news while you were probably still trying to figure out which relative got you into the movie business." Cage's eyes flashed dangerously. "There at Island, the real Joy Behar. When you can't win an argument with facts, you resort to personal attacks and assumptions. For your information, I earned my place in this industry through years of training, dedication, and yes, taking risks that safe little talk show hosts would never dare to take." "Safe?" Joy practically shrieked. "You think what I do is safe? Do you have any idea what it's like to face criticism every single day? To have people analyze every word you say? The difference, Cage said, standing up slightly in his chair, is that I face that criticism for creating something. You face it for tearing other people down. There's a world of difference between being criticized for your art and being criticized for being cruel. Joy slammed her hand on the table. Cruel? I'm being honest. Someone has to tell the truth about these ridiculous movies you make. Ghost Rider? Really? A flaming skeleton motorcycle rider? What adult thought that was a good idea? Cage's voice suddenly went deadly quiet, which was somehow more intimidating than if he had screamed. You know what, Joy? I'm beginning to understand why people change the channel when you start talking. The studio audience gasped audibly at Cage's cutting remark about people changing the channel. Joy's face went through a rapid series of expressions, shock, anger, then something approaching genuine hurt, before settling back into defiant rage. Excuse me? Joy's voice cracked slightly. Did you just insult my ratings? My show has been on the air for decades. I have millions of loyal viewers who tune in specifically to hear what I have to say. Cage tilted his head, studying her with the intensity he usually reserved for his most dramatic roles. And yet here you are, using your platform to attack a guest instead of having a meaningful conversation. Tell me, Joy, when was the last time you created something that brought joy to people instead of just stirring up controversy? I create conversation, Joy shot back, but her voice lacked its earlier conviction. I create dialogue about important issues. Important issues? Cage's eyebrows raised in genuine incredulity. Like mocking someone's career choices? Like ridiculing artistic expression? If that's your idea of important dialogue, then maybe the problem isn't my movies. Maybe the problem is your understanding of what actually matters. Sonny Hostin attempted to mediate. Maybe we can all take a step back here and... No, Joy interrupted, pointing at Cage. I'm not backing down from this. You come on my show, you act all high and mighty about your art, but the truth is you've been making garbage for years and everyone knows it. At least I have the guts to say what people are thinking. Cage stood up fully now, his imposing frame casting a shadow across the table. The cameras captured every micro-expression as his face transformed into something truly formidable. Garbage? His voice carried a dangerous edge that made everyone in the studio lean forward. Let me tell you something about garbage, Joy. Garbage is tearing people down for entertainment. Garbage is using your position of influence to spread negativity instead of celebrating human creativity. Garbage is mistaking cynicism for wisdom. Oh, don't you dare lecture me about wisdom, Joy spat, also rising from her chair. You're an actor, Nicolas. You pretend to be other people for money. I deal with real issues, real politics, real problems that affect real people's lives. Real problems? Cage's laugh was sharp and humorless. Your real problem seems to be that you can't stand when someone doesn't fit into your narrow little box of what's acceptable. You see something different, something unique, and your first instinct is to mock it, to tear it down, to make yourself feel superior by making others feel small. The tension was so thick, you could cut it with a knife. Whoopi was frantically signaling to the producers, but the cameras kept rolling, capturing every explosive second. Joy's voice rose to match his intensity. You know what? Maybe I should mock it. Maybe someone needs to call out the Emperor's New Clothes situation here. Your acting style is just yelling and making weird faces, and somehow you've convinced people that's deep and artistic. My acting style, Cage said, his voice dropping to that menacing whisper again, comes from years of studying under Sanford Meisner, from understanding the method, from dedicating my entire life to the craft. What's your expertise based on, Joy? What qualifies you to judge anyone's artistic expression? Life experience, Joy fired back. Common sense, the ability to call something ridiculous when it's ridiculous. Cage shook his head slowly, a look of genuine pity crossing his features. You know what's truly ridiculous, Joy? Sitting in judgment of people who are brave enough to put themselves out there, to be vulnerable, to risk failure in pursuit of something meaningful. You've built your entire career on being the person who points and laughs while others actually do the work. The work? Joy's voice was getting shrill now. What work? Screaming about stealing the Constitution isn't work. It's a paycheck for overacting. And what you do isn't even that. Cage replied coldly. At least when I overact, I'm trying to give an audience an experience, trying to make them feel something. What you do is just meanness disguised as commentary. Ana Navarro tried desperately to change the subject. Nicolas, your fans really love your commitment to your roles. His fans are probably teenagers who think loud equals funny. Joy interrupted, clearly unable to let it go. Mature audiences want subtlety, sophistication, not whatever this island. Cage's eyes lit up with a dangerous fire. Mature audiences? Is that what you call your demographic? People who tune in to watch you bully guests and spread gossip? That's your idea of mature entertainment? I don't bully anyone, Joy protested, but her voice wavered. I ask tough questions. I hold people accountable. Accountable for what? Cage demanded. For daring to make choices you don't approve of? For having the audacity to be different? For refusing to play it safe like you've done your entire career? The accusation hit its mark. Joy's face flushed red with anger and something that looked suspiciously like shame. Play it safe? She sputtered. Do you think what I do is safe? Do you think it's easy to sit here every day and deal with criticism from people like you who think they're better than everyone else? I don't think I'm better than everyone else, Cage replied with deadly calm. But I'm starting to think I'm better than someone who uses their platform to spread negativity and call it journalism. Joy's face went through a kaleidoscope of emotions at Cage's cutting assessment of her platform. For a moment, genuine hurt flickered across her features before being quickly replaced by pure, undiluted fury. How dare you? She hissed, her voice trembling with rage. How dare you come into my house and act like you're some kind of artistic genius when everyone knows you're just a has-been riding on your uncle's coattails? The mention of Francis Ford Coppola was clearly the final straw. Cage's entire demeanor shifted into something primal and terrifying. His voice, when it came, was barely controlled thunder. My uncle's coattails? Each word was precisely enunciated, dripping with venom. You want to go there, Joy? You really want to make this about family connections? Let's talk about how you got your big break, shall we? Let's discuss the real story of how Joy Behar became Joy Behar. Joy's confidence wavered for the first time. That's completely different, and you know it. Is it? Cage took a step closer to the table, his presence dominating the entire studio. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like someone who's never created anything meaningful is attacking someone who has dedicated his entire life to his craft. And now you want to make it personal? The other hosts had given up any pretense of controlling the situation. Whoopi was staring in fascination. Sarah had her hand over her mouth, and the audience was dead silent, witnessing television history unfold. Personal? Joy's voice cracked with hysteria. You made it personal when you insulted my intelligence, my career, my viewers. You think you can come on here and act like some tortured artist when everyone knows you're just a joke. Cage's laugh was sharp and bitter. A joke? You know what's a joke, Joy? The fact that you think tearing down other people makes you important? The fact that you believe cynicism is the same thing as wisdom. The fact that you've spent so many years being negative that you've forgotten what it's like to actually contribute something positive to the world. Positive? Joy shrieked. What's positive about making terrible movies that waste people's time and money? What's positive about convincing yourself that screaming and overacting is some kind of art form? Cage slammed his hand on the table with such force that the water glasses jumped. What's positive is that I try, Joy. What's positive is that I put myself out there, I take risks, I attempt to give people experiences they've never had before. Sometimes I fail, sometimes I succeed, but at least I'm not hiding behind a desk making cheap shots at people who are actually in the arena. The reference to Theodore Roosevelt's famous speech clearly went over Joy's head, but the power behind Cage's words was unmistakable. His voice rose to a crescendo that filled every corner of the studio. You want to know what my movies are really about? They're about passion, about commitment, about refusing to play it safe in a world full of people like you who think the highest form of entertainment is watching someone else fail. Every single role I've ever taken, from the smallest independent film to the biggest blockbuster, has been approached with the same level of dedication and respect for the craft. Joy was backing away slightly now, clearly intimidated by the sheer force of his presence. That's all well and good, but it doesn't change the fact that some of your movies are objectively terrible. Objectively terrible according to who? Cage's voice dropped to that dangerous whisper that somehow carried more menace than any shout. According to you? According to critics who wouldn't know genuine artistic risk if it bit them on the rear end? According to people who think safe, predictable mediocrity is somehow superior to ambitious failure? According to audiences, Joy stammered, clearly struggling to maintain her footing in the argument. According to box office numbers. According to common sense. Cage shook his head slowly, a look of genuine pity replacing the anger in his eyes. You really don't get it, do you, Joy? You think art is supposed to be safe. You think creativity is supposed to fit into neat little boxes that make everyone comfortable. You've spent so long living in that world that you can't even recognize authenticity when it's standing right in front of you. Authenticity? Joy's voice was getting higher and more desperate. Is that what you call it when you buy dinosaur skulls and pyramid tombs? Is that authentic? Or is that just rich guy weirdness? The personal attack seemed to energize Cage rather than hurt him. His response came with the full force of his considerable talent behind it. You know what, Joy? Yes, I bought unusual things. Yes, I made choices that other people wouldn't make. But at least I lived my life instead of sitting in judgment of people who actually have the courage to be different. At least I didn't spend my career hiding behind safe opinions and manufactured controversy. Joy was visibly shaking now, whether from anger or something else entirely. I'm not hiding behind anything. I say what needs to be said. Someone has to call out the nonsense. The nonsense? Cage's voice rose to a roar that could probably be heard in the parking lot. The real nonsense is thinking that destruction is the same as criticism. The real nonsense is believing that tearing people down makes you important. The real nonsense is wasting a platform that could be used to celebrate human creativity and instead using it to spread misery and negativity. The studio was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Even the camera operators seemed frozen, afraid to move and break the spell of what they were witnessing. Joy made one last desperate attempt to regain control. I'm not spreading misery. I'm being honest about quality. I'm refusing to pretend that everything is wonderful when it's not. Cage stared at her for a long moment, and when he finally spoke, his voice carried a weight that seemed to press down on everyone in the room. Joy, the saddest part about this entire conversation is that you actually believe that. You've convinced yourself that negativity is honesty, that cruelty is truth-telling, that your inability to appreciate something different is somehow a virtue. But here's what you don't understand. You don't get to decide what art means to other people. You don't get to determine what brings joy or meaning to someone's life. All you get to do is choose whether you're going to add something positive to the world, or whether you're going to spend your time tearing down the people who are actually trying to create something beautiful. He straightened up to his full height, every inch the imposing figure that had captivated audiences for decades. I feel sorry for you, Joy. I genuinely do. Because somewhere along the way, you forgot that the point of art, the point of entertainment, the point of human expression, is to connect with each other, to share experiences, to find common ground in our shared humanity. Instead, you've chosen to use your platform to divide, to mock, to diminish. And the truly tragic part is that you think that makes you important. Joy opened her mouth to respond, but no words came. For perhaps the first time in her television career, Joy Behar was completely speechless. Cage gathered himself, smoothing down his jacket with the dignity of someone who had just delivered a masterclass in both acting and human decency. Thank you for having me on your show, he said with devastating politeness. I hope your viewers got the entertainment they were looking for. And with that, he walked off the set, leaving Joy Behar standing alone at the table, still unable to form a coherent response. The camera lingered on her shocked face for several long seconds before finally cutting to commercial, but the damage was already done. Nicolas Cage had just delivered the most devastating takedown in daytime television history, and Joy Behar had been left speechless in her own house. That's the power of authentic passion meeting manufactured controversy. That's what happens when someone who actually creates something faces off